Like it.
Daryl, we're live on YouTube.
Oh, great. And Lee is currently live on TikTok, so there's literally a back and forth going on.
Daryl's trying to get rid of all of our subscribers.
Trying to see if anybody's here. Oh, yes, there's some people here. Hey, if anybody doesn't know who this is over here, this is Lee, who just joined the YardFarmer team full time and helps me do lives. And he has the voice of a radio god that sounds better than mine on YouTube. So I'm going to hand the phone over to Lee, and we're going to start doing our Q&A. If you want to answer or ask me some cool questions about having a yard. Just ask me questions about having a yard. Like, is it nice? Yes, it is.
It is nice having a yard.
And the first thing on the agenda today is... Oh, Lee, do you need my help with the
I
thingy?
pushed all the wrong buttons.
The tripody squeezy thingy? We're still live?
We're still live.
We're sorry that we're late, everybody. We're learning how to use technology. It was really the moral of that, the thesis of why we were late. And this is already looking really precarious to me. There we go.
Okay.
You got it?
Yep.
You squeeze it?
Yeah, it goes in.
That's okay.
Now we got this part.
Yeah, that's this one.
That's that one? Okay.
I got you.
Tech.
I got you.
Boy, and I just have to say, the Sony A7 III that you picked up here is doing an amazing job. We were able to sell the total knit count on your sweater there. Okay. So, all right. So already in YouTube, we have Diana Jennings is there with Joni Stubbs and Third M Holmes, who's our rock star from last week.
Oh, so yeah.
All right.
We got regulars.
All
right. Well, I think there's one thing that we have to take care of before we get started with any questions. Okay. And we have to choose what beer we're drinking. Okay. Because Lee brought celebratory beer.
Yes.
To celebrate. It's the end of a long work week, everybody. To celebrate his joining the team. So we have some local goodness. Tell me what you brought, Lee.
Okay, I can't remember. There's a wheat saison, and then there's a lemonade stand sour, which is also, it's a lemonade Marionberry sour.
Is it okay if I take that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to try the saison?
I'm definitely a saison person.
Okay.
So these are gigantic beers.
Look at the size of this beer.
You might see this beer in Daryl's hand and think that she's just a tiny person. That's a regular sized beer. No, it's just a giant beer.
I am a small person
yes.
holding a normal sized can of beer.
I'm a wee person from a wee land.
I am just a wee person. Just a wee person having a wee beer on a wee Friday. Hey, Lee, will you crack the beer with me, please?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's pink! I got pink beer on my pants.
Uh-oh.
You didn't cheers me or anything?
I was so excited about beer. Oh, that's good.
All right, cheers, Lee. Wait, I want another dramatic cheers. Thank you.
They do such good beer at Fisher.
And now the weekend has officially begun.
Weekend has begun. Should we start with some questions?
First sip of beer. Yeah, if there are any questions waiting.
We had questions before we even got on the air.
All right.
And apologies, folks, that were waiting. We were trying to get the perfect microphone settings because every week we have a goal to make things just a little better.
Yeah.
Just a little better.
We're learning all the time.
Yeah. All right. So, Diana wanted to know if you could explain the services you provide in just greater detail.
Oh my gosh. Diana, are you a plant? Did somebody plant you here in order to help me promote my sweet little business? Because I love that. Okay, sure. So I'm a sustainable landscape designer. I own YardFarmer.co, which is a sustainable landscape design company / firm. Basically, I help folks transform their wasted and wasteful outdoor spaces into things that don't suck, both ecologically and also functionally and also visually. So what I do, and what my team now does, because we have a wonderful, amazing landscape architect on staff, which we will even be growing our team more this year, is I first start with a consult. So that's, I guess, the number one service. She wanted me to outline the services, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first service is a consult, which can stand on its own as a service, or it's the first step into a full service landscape design, because it helps me get to know you and understand your yard and ask questions and start brainstorming, and we figure out if we're a good fit for each other and all of that. So the consult's the first thing. We hop on a video call. You filled out client homework beforehand, so I get to look at the pictures. I got you on Google Earth. I got you on Google Street View. I'm like really brainstorming. I come armed with a lot of thoughts and ideas. and we figure out what your design style is. Do you want an arts and crafts style garden? Do you want a modern Japanese style garden? Do you want Mediterranean? Do you want English cottage, right? And then we apply those design approaches to an ecological approach. So, doing a modern Mediterranean style garden, but with 100% native plants to your area, that sort of thing. And it's fabulous and fun and amazing, and I'm thrilled to be doing it. So right now, we've got like 30 or 40 clients for the rest of the year, and it's just like, if it was just me on the team, I would need to turn off designs for the rest of the year. But thank goodness we found this absolutely amazing angel of a human who I'm begging on my hands, on my knees, for her to come join us full time, and she's thinking about it.
She's very talented.
Yeah. So we're a team of 4.5 right now. So 4 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, and I hope that we will be a team of 5 by the end of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we did get a comment here, and I do have to second this as a light and photography person. Your hair does look amazing.
Thank you so much.
That was from Samantha on TikTok. Just wanted to let you know that your hair looks fantastic, and yeah, it's catching all the light.
Thank you. Yeah, I woke up one day with like my hair just parted down the middle. I've never worn it parted down the middle, and I was like, I don't hate that. And that was like 4 days ago. So we're trying a new thing, but the premature gray is a new thing I'm trying to embrace.
That's business ownership.
It's genetic from my mother, actually. My mom has salt and pepper hair all through the back. But her front 2 streaks are completely white at this point, so it's just a thing that happens to the women in my family.
Karen on TikTok said stated that you're booked for 2023. Is that true?
My book for 2023? Oh, like my.
Are you booked out on your schedule?
Oh, am I booked out for 2023? No, because we are growing our team. So what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to be sharing the workload with a landscape architect who I am obsessed with, and you will also be obsessed with. And we will be on the kickoff calls together, and you'll get to know me as well as her. So we're spreading out the workload. So hopefully we'll be able to double the amount of work that we're doing this year. But as it stands at this exact moment, yes, for this growing season, I cannot do any more work alone.
But if you're excited to see that process, we're actually going to be recording some of the collaborative work that you and our landscape architect do, because that's really fun to watch.
It's so fun.
All right. Diana on YouTube asks if you can convince her husband that grass is bad. And she lives in Farmington.
Okay, so I need to... Okay, wait.
Yeah,
I'm going to have some fun with this.
This is your elevator pitch.
Okay, so I need to convince Diana's husband that grass is bad.
Yes.
Diana, are you still there?
Yes.
What's your husband's name? I'm going to direct this right at him.
Okay.
We're waiting on Diana's
husband's name. We'll ask the next question and get back to Diana's. Okay. So Joni on YouTube wants to know if we can talk gophers. Are they important to the ecosystem? Or can she just get rid of them? If so, is there a good way? Are there some gopher-resistant plants if we don't want to go the extermination route?
If you don't want to go the extermination route, which I don't really recommend, but I understand that they can be really a problem. The just about best thing you can do is, especially in like raised garden beds or things where you want to grow food, you need to put hardware cloth along the very bottom of your bed. Hardware cloth will allow the roots to still penetrate down into the soil. You'll still have all of the microbial benefits of like soil contact with your plants, but the gophers won't be able to chew through. There's a book I would recommend that you read called oh gosh, I remember the tagline but not the title. But it's the permaculture approach to invasive species. And essentially, both with invasive animal species and invasive plant species, the permaculture approach is trying to turn problems into solutions versus just trying to fight uphill battles with the problems. So in that book, they address ways to use like the, shall we say, waste of these invasive species as fertilizer, and to like embrace like the ecological services that they're providing, while also trying to minimize the damage that they're doing.
And we actually had a comment on one of our YouTube videos this week, somebody asking if hardware cloth would be a good thing to like staple to the bottom of a planter.
Exactly, yeah, it is. And depending on the size of the pest that you're fighting, like obviously the larger the holes in the hardware cloth, the better as far as just allowing more roots to get down there. But even if it's a pretty fine hardware cloth, the roots are still going to be able to access nutrients and whatnot from that subsoil. So
Awesome. All right, Karen, not Karen on TikTok.
hi, nice to see you again.
We should like to talk clover, and this is one of our perennial questions.
Yes, but I did post a video today to TikTok and Instagram about how microclover is a scam. So I'm happy to talk about that since I truly just posted that a few hours ago. If you are looking to do a clover lawn, which is not the number one thing that I recommend doing, but if that is something that really appeals to you, I would strongly recommend you just purchase common white clover, Dutch clover, instead of microclover, because microclover is marketed to be significantly smaller and cuter than regular clover when it, according to all of the academic studies like at the University of Illinois and the University of Minnesota, it's just slightly smaller at best, just slightly smaller. It's the same exact scientific variety of clover, Trifolium repens. It's just a variety of it. And it costs 4 times as much. Like a pound of Dutch clover is $10, a pound of microclover is $40. So don't spend your money on microclover is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, our clover just got its first flower today. It was really
the
cute.
Little bees are going to come
yeah.
and enjoy that.
Okay, Lindsay, very excited to catch their first live here on YouTube.
Hi,
so
Lindsay. I'm so happy you're here.
And let's see, advice for English ivy extermination. This is Lindsay Crute, who just chimed in here.
Did you just see my TikTok that I posted about my English ivy literally 45 minutes ago?
The main advice that Lindsay's been getting is Roundup.
Which actually won't work on most, like invasive ivy. You can spray it and spray it and spray it, and
it won't work on woody plants, will it?
It's gonna thrive. Yeah, so I just saw, and this is an aside, I will answer the English ivy question, but Chelsea Green Publishing just announced a book about the dangers of Roundup and the ecological harm that Roundup causes. And I've said this in just about every live that if y'all don't know, like Monsanto owns Roundup. So there are marketing forces at play that make us want to use Roundup to get rid of dandelions, for example. Like, why do we hate dandelions? Why do we as a society hate this medicinal, edible, pollinator-supporting, cute yellow flower plant? It's because we were marketed at that it was bad so that Monsanto could sell Roundup to millions and millions of people. That's why. So I can't say the word I want to say, but screw Roundup. Anyway, English ivy. I recommend you watch the live from last week because I went into detail about the process of first ripping up manually, then solarizing, and then sheet mulching. And I think we talked about that for like probably 20 plus minutes. So I'd recommend you pop back over to that video. But that is the formula. You're going to manually remove as much as you can. You're going to solarize with clear plastic. Then once that's been solarizing for 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to be aggressively sheet mulch with cardboard or contractor paper or newspaper is just as much like solid organic material as you can. Leaves would even work. And wood chips on top of that just to really try to smother it out. You will probably have to do that 2 to 4 times over the course of several years to truly get a hold on a mature English ivy invasion, because it just is what it is.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to pull out that English ivy question from last week and make it its own video so that people can find it easier, because I think it's really good stuff.
I just posted a video like 45 minutes ago because I have that English ivy that just started in my front yard, and I need to just go and get it fully eradicated before it has a chance to pick up for the season.
And folks, if you don't have TikTok, just keep in mind most of the short form content that ends up on TikTok does also show up on Instagram. And of course, if you want the longer form content, we do have a YouTube channel. And today we posted our sod cutting video.
We did.
Yeah, which was a fun project.
So we're going to be walking you through over the next several weeks the 4 eco-friendly ways to transform your lawn to a native pollinator supporting, wildlife supporting landscape, maybe even making your yard a certified wildlife habitat, which would be really sweet. And the first one we covered was sod cutting, because that's definitely the most like instant gratification, quick returns. You sod cut, you manually remove the sod, and then you plant something immediately in its place. The other ones like solarizing, sheet mulching, and overseeding are more of like a longer, easier upfront, but like longer maintenance kind of process. But we're doing videos and blog posts about all 4, and we're going to be walking everybody through that. And then we're also launching our Discord channel really, really soon. It's been beta tested. All of the bugs are clean, like it's looking great. So we'll be sending out the invites to that, and we'll have all of that content in the different channels so that you can access the tutorials as well as talk about your progress, ask questions, talk to other people who are doing the same thing. It's going to be really cool.
And of course, if you have questions, feel free to chime in. We'll probably see them easier if you put the word question in brackets first.
I like that.
But that's just to help us consolidate stuff. Anna asks on TikTok if you can give us a set of perennial plants that you would advise people to add to their gardens in Utah.
In Utah. Okay, well then this is fabulous. Blue grama ornamental grass. It is so beautiful. It's this beautiful silvery blue ornamental grass, and then it has those little oat-like seed pods on them, but they're at an angle. And because of that, when it catches that like golden hour light, it just has the most gorgeous texture. I cannot recommend it enough. I strategically use it in perennial beds to break up like all of the wild color and kind of let the eye rest a little bit. So I can have color, and then 5 to 7 blue grammas like in a kind of swath, and then more color over here. It just provides frame, it provides context, and the texture of it is just so yummy. So blue grammas, amazing. Penstemons, any color you want. Native, gorgeous, incredible. Yarrow, as long as you are sure that your dog is not going to chomp on it, fabulous. What other ones aster. One of the more ecologically important plants. Smooth aster specifically. And then believe it or not, the common sunflower is one of the most important wildlife supporting plants native to our area. Any combination of those, gorgeous.
And you can tell sunflower does well here because it grows everywhere. It's like on the side of the freeway. Yeah. It's in empty fields.
Yeah, and I will add that caveat. Once you plant sunflower seeds once and they become sunflowers, you will never need to plant them again. They will just show up where they want to show up. And what happens is every year they volunteer all over my yard, and I keep the ones that are in okay places, and then I just have to pull the ones that have showed up like in the middle of pathways or forming like hedges of like blocking traffic or whatever. They will be everywhere, and it's okay. I don't even end up harvesting mine for the seeds. I leave them on all fall, and I just watch the birds decimate them, and they're just living bird feeders at that point, which I love.
So a question that I saw pop up earlier on our YouTube channel from a listener or a viewer, when is the right time to start actually raking up your leaves and organic matter? Because a lot of people have been saying leave it over the winter because it's great wildlife habitat. Is there a time when you actually should start picking it up? Okay.
Yeah, that is a fabulous question, and I have 2 answers for you. So if you are comfortable leaving 100% of your leaves, you want to wait until May to rake them up. You want average temperatures to be in the 50s and above, because that means that all of the pollinators that we're harvesting under the leaf litter have emerged and are no longer going to be there, especially if you're going to mulch your leaves or shred them or anything. You don't want to hurt any poor sleeping pollinator babies, right? So we let them leave. We let them mosey on their way before we clean up the leaves. Now, I have a practicality first approach. I want everybody to make ecological decisions, but I understand that like people want their front yards to look neat and orderly, and they might not want to leave all of the leaves. So in that case, what I recommend is that you pick strategic places to leave leaf litter for the entire winter. So I clean up my front yard from a big majority of the leaves, but I lay all the leaves down in the actual like edged out landscaping beds so that that is still accessible to the pollinators. I also have a side yard that's pretty much not in use at this point. I hope to change that in the future. But that side yard, I pile all of my additional leaves there just to provide more pollinator habitat throughout the entire winter. And then you can still clean up those leaves in September and October from everywhere else. Just don't send them to a landfill. Please do not take this organic, naturally decomposing material, bag it in plastic, and send it to a landfill. That is my number one ask of you this evening. Nobody do that.
You could actually start a party to get your neighborhood resources together and try to encourage your neighbors into doing more sustainable.
I would love to do more like neighborhood-based sustainable practices, because we talk about closing loops and having closed loop systems, but oftentimes a small urban property is just too small to have like a truly closed loop off grid, or we're on the grid, but you know what I mean, have those things in place. But if we could make the loops bigger and say like a neighborhood composting operation, or neighborhood chickens, so that everyone in the neighborhood has eggs, but only a couple people have to handle the care. I think that would be such a wonderful use of community and a sustainable practice. And we don't do it in a society that values individuality this much.
Well, could you imagine, like, you see the rent-a-goat program where a guy's got goats and he'll send them to your property?
I love goatscaping, man.
Yeah. What if you had what if you had a whole flock of chickens and you said to your neighbors, hey, you want my chickens to just run free in your garden for a day and get rid of some of your bugs?
Yeah.
That could be great.
Yeah.
You could do it with ducks.
You could chicken tractor chickens through an entire neighborhood for the pest control and the fertilization alone, right? They provide such wonderful, sustainable, ecological services. That's why I love chickens in a sustainable landscape design for anybody who's actually likes chickens. Mm-hmm. But I understand it's not practical for every single person in a neighborhood to keep chickens. We've got nurses working 24-hour shifts and firefighters, and we have all these people who they're not going to go out every single day to feed and water chickens. But also, should they be paying $9 for eggs at the store?
Right. I'll tell you what my mom's solution for all of this was.
Lee's mom's legendary.
To me, at least. My mom kept ducks for the garden, and we had 4 ducks, and we dug out a deep, deep duck pond. And we watered the garden with the water from the duck pond.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Because it's dark green, nutrient-rich water.
That's literally my favorite. So yeah. That's an amazing element of like a water feature in a permaculture style landscape design, mm-hmm. is you use the aquaculture in the pond. Mm-hmm. And in some of them, especially in more drought-prone areas, we do have the pond even connected to optional city water in case there's a drought year, so that all of your fish don't die and whatnot. So if there's a drought year, you do have the option to, turn it on, just get a little extra water in there. But then there's also a pipe that carries that water periodically straight into the garden, and it waters your garden beds. It's the most wonderful, efficient, systemic, just thoughtful, fabulous thing.
Yeah.
Your mom was the OG. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, her leafy greens literally vibrated. Yeah. They were so healthy.
No, your mom's the OG.
Trampy Trash Panda on TikTok said the Corps of Engineer has a goat contract to eat the vegetation off their dirt dams in Oregon. That's mm-hmm. amazing.
Mm-hmm. and it's so efficient. Why aren't we utilizing these amazing, I've said the word so many times it's going to get redundant, but ecological services. Yeah. And like you said, you can rent goats. It's mm-hmm. a thing. Goatscaping, Google it, especially if you have big thatchy woods you need cleared of invasive species.
Oh yeah, they'll take it down.
I guess I should even say, for folks who have English ivy everywhere, if you have a backwoods with English ivy everywhere, it's time to call in the goats. It's time to call in the goats, my friends.
Get the goat squad on the
We need backup.
Third M Homes, who, by the way, I just adore this person. She's mm-hmm. such a super fan on YouTube here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, she's amazing. I actually shouldn't assume gender, but Third M Homes said, not to make solarization into a big topic again, but do you have any tips or alternatives for weeds which are spread out among desirable plants?
Oh, see, then the goats would be
not a good idea.
Not ideal in that scenario.
Could you do zoned or targeted solarization, or is this a sheet mulching thing?
You certainly can, depending on how. Yes, that's a great answer, Lee. Depending on how far apart the desirable plants are, because solarizing does really heat up the roots and the ground right beneath it, and you do risk causing extreme stress to the desirable plants while solarizing the things in between. To Lee's point, Lee said it might be worth just doing mass repetitive sheet mulching. So going in around the desirable plants with cardboard, getting compost and mulch on top. Some will break through, you'll do it again. This will be sort of a seasonal practice for you for a number of years, I'm guessing, but it also will be feeding the soil, and all of the mulch will be breaking down, and the soil will be getting healthier. And then you could also, while you're sheet mulching, just start planting more desirable stuff right on top, so that desirable stuff can compete out the weeds. The weeds get less and less access to light. The desirable stuff gets more and more access to light. Eventually, all will be well.
It's our 4th show, and I just realized I'm learning Damn it.
You're learning.
Daryl,
I'm teaching
learning.
you.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
just soaking this up like a
You're,
sponge.
you're a YardFarmer employee. You got
That's true.
you got an email.
Lee
We're
at
gonna work on
yardfarmer.com.
little cartoon icons or something.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I love this next question. This is Mary on YouTube, and we actually have a video that can answer this to some detail with one possible way to fix this problem.
Tell me.
But you may have more.
Tell me.
This was our first question last week about veggie gardens. How do you murder the squash bugs if you're squidged out by them? I know someone who's squidged out by squash bugs.
Squidged out by them.
If you're squidged out by physically squishing them with your fingers.
Yeah. Okay, I have so many answers. Okay, so first we're going to talk about what we didn't address in the previous video, and then I'm going to point you to where you can hear me talk at length about squash bugs. But if you have squash bugs that are already here, so we're not in the prevention phase, we're in the management phase, I need you to go get yourself a pair of cocktail ice tongs, okay? Because these are significantly more dexterous than the kitchen tong. Significantly more, you have way more use of those. You know what I'm saying? That's finally what got it, because I can't touch them. I would literally rather die. I would rather just disappear off of this earth than touch a squash bug. So I have the little cocktail ice tongs, and then you just fill up a bucket, like a Lowe's or Home Depot bucket, with soapy dishwater. And you take that and you put it, and you have to do it. And even still, that grossed me out so much because I just have an irrational fear of those stupid little bugs. In the management phase, there are beneficial predators that you can introduce into your garden to basically hunt and eat the squash bugs, and you can grow squash bug resistant plants. I would highly recommend you check out the live from last week because I think we talked about it for like 10 plus minutes, and I don't want to repeat the 10 plus minutes, but we got all the info there.
And I thought you were exaggerating because you kept gesturing like this about tromboncino squash.
No.
And then I looked up tromboncino squash.
No, yeah. And you can't see Lee, but he's saying I was gesturing like this to say that the squash are this big. They are truly, like, I can hold one up like this next to my face. It goes down to my knee.
They're amazing.
They're 4 to 5 feet tall.
I'm literally obsessed with them now.
Yeah. So, and that is just the short answer, so you don't have to go combing through. Grow squash bug resistant. Grow squash bug resistant varieties of squash, like the tromboncino squash. Squash bugs are not that interested in that squash, which is kind of fabulous.
Mary pointed out that hell yeah, for solar punk world goals, we're big fans of solar punk.
Yeah. We just all need to start talking to our neighbors more, man.
Yeah.
It's hard, especially in this like post-panorama world. It's hard, but we need to start embracing community. I really believe that.
Well, think about it. If you had a neighborhood that you were able to do community-based solar so that all your neighbors benefited from the solar panels, the rotating ducks.
Yeah, rotating animals through composting, trash collect, like all of these things that we just, you have to pay a service to do it now individually. And even outside of the ecological stuff, how stupid is it that every single household in a single neighborhood needs to pay for Wi-Fi? To like the same one of 2 companies, like the fact that we aren't pooling these resources is I don't even know if I want to dive into the politics of that, but let's just say a certain societal element that really values individuality for that exact reason, and maybe that's where I'll leave it today.
And yet we all share our Netflix passwords. It's so weird. Yeah.
Let's Netflix password our gardens and our neighborhoods, please.
Love that. Okay, Anna on TikTok wants to flip strips. Don't know where to start, what plants to add, trees, etc. Actually, I have the same question, so illuminate me.
Okay, on flipping the park strip.
Yes.
Awesome. So I don't know if Anna's in Utah. Because you use the phrase flip your strip, I think you might be in Utah because that's a marketing campaign from Localscapes that's here in Utah. So I will go on as if you are. But I would highly recommend you go to localscapes.com because they do actually have free plans available that you can pick out well-adapted and native plants that are already in those plans, and they're already kind of pre-designed for you. And you can also apply for the rebate. And they do rebate you $1.25 per square foot if you currently have turf grass in your park strip. It doesn't end up amounting to a shocking amount of money, but it will cover the cost of new plants at least. So it's worth doing.
And if you have, if you want to see some examples and you're in Utah, you can go to the Jordan Conservation Water Park, which I think is amazing. Yeah,
the Conservation Garden Park is highly worth a visit if you do live in Utah. I'd say probably wait another month for things to really start greening up and getting really colorful, but it's It's one of my favorite just little day trips.
What I love is they have everything zoned out so you can see what things will look like during that time of year.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, you go in May and you're like, that's what it looks like when it's starting to bud out, and then go in August again and see how it looks when it's yeah, it's neat stuff. Any suggestions for types of grass for Arizona heat?
Oh, that's a tough one, my friend. It really depends on what you need to use the grass for. So I'm going to start talking if you want to start typing and tell me like what you really need the grass for. Arizona is a really difficult one, and that's why we see so much either rockscaping or astroturf, neither of which I like or even recommend, because they contribute to heat island effect, and that's what makes the cities even hotter than they currently are. My number one tip outside of the actual lawn choice is you need to establish some shade on your property. So getting native trees, mesquite is a very popular one, native trees planted and nourished and watered so that they can eventually provide cooling shade onto an Arizona property is really number one for bringing all of the temperatures down and making it even possible to grow any type of grass. Now, Bermuda grass is the most popular grass that we see in Arizona. It's a warm season grass at least, but it is fairly invasive and still not my favorite thing. There's a sterilized version of Bermuda grass called dogtuff grass that's worth a look. Basically, the scientists sterilized it so it cannot produce seeds anymore. It still spreads pretty aggressively by runners, but in a place like Arizona where it is so hot and so dry, it's like, how aggressive are we talking? So, you can use your judgment on that. Buffalo grass is my favorite native turf grass in the United States. It is not quite Arizona friendly except for the variety called UC Verde. UC Verde is really drought and heat tolerant and could probably survive in an Arizona yard, but would require some supplemental irrigation, which of course if you're growing any grass in Arizona, it would require supplemental irrigation. So I honestly think that would be fine. I'd also strongly encourage that whatever you add, you supplement with rainwater harvesting in order to leverage the monsoonal rains that come into Arizona properties. And the number one resource you should be looking for on that is Brad Lancaster, who's based in Tucson, Arizona. And his books are Rainwater Harvesting for Drylands and Beyond, Part 1 and Part 2. Worth every second of that read. Please get both books, read both books, because he was able to transform his basically city block into an oasis in the middle of a desert using rainwater harvesting and gray water recycling alone. And it's 10 to 15 degrees cooler than Tucson at large when you're standing on his property.
You can tell within a block that everything's changed.
Yeah.
And like everybody in the area is now starting to try to adapt that.
Because it's so much more tolerable to be there. I mean, can you imagine a 15-degree difference in temperature on a hot summer day? Like just the relief you would feel just existing as a human being. Yeah,
he has infectious YouTube channel.
I know. So yes, look him up on YouTube as well. He's a hero of mine.
Our camera overheated on YouTube.
Oh no.
So.
Well, that's a fun technological difficulty I didn't expect.
I didn't expect that either. So, all right, we'll keep going.
All right.
We have questions on Trampy Trash Panda, again on TikTok, is wanting to do a PDC, which I'm assuming is permaculture design course.
Sure is.
How did you find a good school and curriculum?
Okay. I went to Oregon State University. They're a really, really famous school for forestry and agriculture and ecological services in general. And they do have a permaculture design program. It was 4 to 6 months long. If you do the professional version, it's 6 months long. If you do the more just for yourself version, it's 4 months long. And it was really hard. I mean, it kicked my ass. So I loved the work, so I'm not saying that was the problem, but just the sheer quantity of work. Like every Friday through Sunday, that was all I did for 6 months. So if you have that time available to you, I could not recommend it enough because it did change my life and provided like the baseline of all of these skills. But they do have different kinds of PDCs all over the world where they're more like workshops, and you go and you spend 4 or 5 or 6 days just learning about these things, and then you're able to take a test and get the certification. So that's 2 very different options depending on what your goal is. I would say, wanting to take this and then become a professional designer, the much more structured curriculum was beneficial for me, and I really did learn more than I ever could have thought It was just so awesome. And I will say though, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do you solid here. A lot of their content that is truly like the course curriculum content that we watch as students is free on YouTube. Obviously the assignments and the structure and like being forced to do the work was a huge part of the benefit. So there's that. But if you're okay with just wanting to hyperfixate on something and watch a bunch of videos and learn a bunch of stuff, go to YouTube and type in like Oregon State University Permaculture Design Course and all of it'll come up. I think they have like 1/3 of the class available for free.
Yeah, and isn't Corvallis kind of like the permaculture capital?
It's like the capital of the world. Yeah, it's everywhere there.
Yeah, so they're in Washington and they're considering the pro course at OSU anyway, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And Salty Grows on TikTok recommends Oregon State PDC as well. It's hard.
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I loved it. Okay, and Anna said they love your videos and content. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. So this is just a love fest for you here, Daryl.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Trampy Trash Panda does habitat restoration for the feds and wants to transfer career paths. So
it sounds like a very fabulous, like just continuation if you're already working in ecosystem restoration. Like I'm thrilled about that for you. So I definitely recommend it. Ryan, if you're there, Salty Grows, I have a question about those figs. You said that you had figs. I want to know what type of figs they are. I want to know how they're grown in Utah. And I just read a whole bunch of really cool stuff about figs and their symbiotic relationship to like decaying wood. So if you want to go like have fun planting some figs in some dead tree stumps.
That sounds amazing.
Let me know if that sounds like a plan, fam.
Lindsay on YouTube has a question. Planting suggestion for Zone 7B near Charlotte, North Carolina.
Sick.
It's a partly shaded bank underneath 2 large oak trees. It's currently home to some sad, I think the word is liriope, or liriope, that is not filling in, and some vinca and eroding dirt. Now, I know vinca here in shade would just take off like crazy, but I don't know Charlotte.
Are we talking about wanting a ground cover?
I think so, yeah. So a suggestion for something to plant under that tree.
I would very strongly recommend you look into creeping phlox, which is native to the Appalachian region, and I believe that would count. So I would look up to that. Check the native range just to triple check, but it's my favorite shady woodland ground cover on that kind of general area of the United States, and it's just the most beautiful purple flowers.
I love phlox.
I love phlox, and creeping phlox is so great.
Gregory Badger just jumped on, read an AP News article recently about how No Mow May isn't good. What are your thoughts on No Mow May?
I haven't read the article, so I don't know what points they're making, but I'm all for it because lawnmowers contribute to a ridiculous amount of the actual air pollution that we have. It's some ridiculous number. I don't remember the exact one, but it's a notable number that actual mechanized lawnmowers contribute to. And it really does give those pollinators a chance to like wake up and get going before we start just right on it. I don't hate No Mow May at all. I also think it is kind of ridiculous how short we keep our lawns. Like a lawn can still look orderly at 3 inches instead of 1 inch. And guess what? Root health and the overall health of the plant directly correlated to blade length. So the longer the blade of the lawn, the healthier the lawn, the less water it needs, the greener it's going to look, the less stress it's going to be when it gets hot, all of those things. And when we're cropping these lawns down to like 1 inch every single week, we're basically saying, how do you want to just be like hanging on for dear life? And the only way that you will keep from going dormant is if we're just dumping buckets of water on you. It's all just so counterintuitive.
Yeah, a longer blade gets better nutrient absorption. Makes sense, right?
The roots, well, it's like literally the length of the roots directly correlated to the length of the blade. So if you mow the lawn, the roots shrink. It's nuts.
Lindsay did give us some follow-up. Yes, looking for ground cover and potential soil amendments, worried about the soil nutrient level because of the trees.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I never, ever will discourage a soil test, especially if you're just starting out. It's so important, especially in urban areas, because we have so many contaminations from like heavy metals and petroleum products and whatnot. But it's important no matter what. We see with new builds all the time, the fill dirt that gets brought in, useless. We just don't know what's there. There's no way to know. So get a soil test. You would want to just look up your state's ag extension. And they usually have a form that you need to fill out, as well as detailed instructions on how to collect and send off the soil sample. There's just, to me, no reason to purchase plants and keep trying to throw stuff at the wall until we actually know what's going on under there. I've had clients recently where their phosphorus levels are off the charts and that's preventing any nutrient absorption. I've had clients where the salinity was off the charts and we had to leach the saline from the property by basically doing flood irrigation for a extended period of time. It was the only way to get the salts out. I've had clients where we've had to transfer them exclusively over to a rainwater harvesting based system because the secondary water that they were using to irrigate their lawn was so saline that it was making it was salting the earth, literally. It was making it impossible to grow anything. So until you know what's in your dirt, we can't make a plan, fam.
Yeah, I had a house in Central Oregon that we didn't know had been backfilled with junk dirt, and everything we planted died.
Yeah.
But we bought the house that way, so we just assumed that we were terrible at growing.
Yeah,
and that wasn't the case.
It's fill dirt.
Yeah.
They just bring it. I don't know where they get it. I don't know what is happening, but it's nightmare.
It's like once they scrape the topsoil off, that's what's left, and that's what they dump on.
But once you know, you can get some organic fertilizer. You can get all sorts. I mean, if you have potassium deficiencies, you can bring in hardwood shavings, which have potassium. Like there's all sorts of things. There's a bug or something. There's all sorts of things that we can do.
So we had a great comment here. Creeping phlox comes in pink, white, as well as purple. It's true. It's great stuff.
Gorgeous.
Splendid Liz on TikTok, planting coleus under a huge live oak in central Texas. Will the roots hinder the coleus from thriving?
I highly doubt it. A native gorgeous oak, guess what? The soil underneath trees like that is the best soil you will have on your entire property. You need to make sure that something is well adapted to the light conditions if the oak is providing heavy shade, so that's important. But that's why people recommend doing compost piles under trees, because the microbial activity from the tree roots, because guess what? Mycorrhizal fungi need roots to survive, so the mycorrhizal fungi are there in spades underneath that tree. So I don't necessarily think that an oak tree of all things is going to be the problem.
It's funny, we had two questions from two different people pretty much asking the same question, but this is awesome. Christina and Vesper Sky Homestead.
Hi.
Asking if soil testing is, for soil testing, is the Haney test better, or are there other tests that might be better? And it's funny because their questions are almost identical, but not. So I know it's two different people.
I don't have a preference. I'm sorry. I wish I had a more passionate answer.
Whatever your local extensions
Yeah, I would. Oh man, we're losing the camera.
Yeah, we'll get this part figured out. I don't want to go to the worst video setting.
Yeah.
But we probably should, because people can't see you at all right now.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Can we just turn it off and on again?
We have been, and it lasts for a minute.
Okay.
So we're gonna go to this grainier setting for a minute.
Okay.
And then.
We're learning.
Yeah, it's this this camera runs real hot on the. Oh my gosh, you look amazing setting.
But I want to look amazing.
Yeah, well, you look fantastic on TikTok right now. So yeah, we're gonna be VHR Dad's VHS camcorder for a few minutes on YouTube, and we apologize for that.
I'm wondering if we should go live on Instagram. If we should say goodbye to our friends on TikTok and try saying hello to Instagram for a bit. But
you want to switch over?
I don't know. I'm thinking about it. We'll see how much protest we get. How many people do we have on TikTok?
On TikTok, currently 33. I mean.
All right, we'll stay.
Okay.
Love that for you guys.
Yeah. Katie did on TikTok. Speaking of fill dirt, is the compost from the Great Salt Lake County landfill good to use? I know we get asked this question, but I think it's a great question.
No, it's a great question. I am all for the Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County compost. They've certified it. They've quality tested it. There's no biosecurity issues that I know. Obviously, anything can happen, but they are standing by it as a product. So if I were to get it from anywhere other than some, a great local retailer that you trust, that's where I would get it. Of course, making your own is better, but we all have to start somewhere.
And they don't deliver it. You have to go pick it up.
You have to go pick it up, so that is a problem. Now, if you live in Salt Lake and are watching this is a shameless plug, and he does not know he does not know that I'm about to do this. But Mike at Salt Lake Compost, gem of a human being. What are we doing, Lee?
We're fixing the camera.
Okay.
We're not fixing the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, I should stop.
Lee, you're freaking me out, man.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to this other setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're learning.
I don't know. Were you just switching to manual focus? Why?
because the autofocus doesn't work on the cinema setting, or off of the cinema setting, but now we should be back to good. Yep, okay. We're back to good. As long as that lasts, we'll make it good.
So we're on the cinema setting again?
Yes.
It is what it is. We can turn it off and on again. We'll figure it out. I'm sorry, guys. If you're really annoyed by this, we are on TikTok also.
It's it is punk rock documentary filmmaking is what we're doing right now. So
I love Salt Lake Compost. Mike, you can call Mike at Salt Lake Compost. He does not know I'm promoting him right now. He might be very confused, but tell him I sent you.
Is that Mike that does the char?
That's John.
That's John. Different name.
Mike and John, yeah.
Different guys.
No, Mike is just this just sweet gem, excited about dirt human being. And we love Mike.
Yeah, and Mary just moved over from our YouTube channel because the camera died. I feel really bad about that because we're trying to grow our YouTube channel, but
we're trying to grow our YouTube channel, but we're having technical difficulties. So if everyone watching this live on TikTok could subscribe to us on YouTube out of pity,
and because we do some great long form content on YouTube,
but mostly pity, that would be so great. Pity me. I'll accept it. I'm not above it.
And Sawdust Fairy said, yeah, even if you did switch over to Instagram right in this stream, she'd switch over too. So.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish TikTok let us save the lives the way Instagram lets us save the lives, because it's so nice to have the content just available.
Right. And I know you're a big fan of lighting and how things look, and if you saw how you looked on TikTok right now, you'd be so happy. So.
But I will never get to know.
You'll never know. You'll never know. Well, we'll do a screen grab. So. Third M Homes, speaking of soil test forms, if the tester offers several testing options, could you talk more about what some of the top options are to select if you were to get one?
I guess I just don't see the point in getting that granular. Like I always recommend that folks just go straight through their state's agricultural extension. It's the most straightforward. You basically use a soil probe, or you dig a hole and take a slice right off the side and you send it in, and the information's really wonderful and robust. So I don't have more than that at this time.
If you're wondering where we are on YouTube, just look for YardFarmer and this face. So she's all over it. She literally is the face of YardFarmer because she is YardFarmer.
YardFarmer Co, I believe, is the handle. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah. Okay, Vesper Sky Homestead. I'm starting my homestead from scratch, overgrown forest and fields. Oh, be still my heart.
I know you, and I love your content on TikTok, Vesper Sky Homestead.
Amazing. Any books or recommendations for silvopasture using animals to restore landscapes?
Yes. Oh gosh. I'm like, it's always bad when I have to turn around.
The bookcase in front of
you.
The
bookcase. Yeah. Like, let me look in front. I would strongly recommend. It's not a book. Oh gosh, it's so fun when I'm on live and it's like on the tip of my tongue and I don't know the name.
I like the term silvopasture. That's awesome.
Yeah, forest, and it's fantastic. But it's the farmer on the East Coast, and his name is escaping me right now. But he's featured in another book that's escaping me right now. Isn't this so fun when I go live and I can't remember things?
Oh, you have been working since like 7 a.m.
The Omnivore's Dilemma, the book that made me vegetarian for approximately 8.5 months. And even then, when I went back into eating meat, I had to know exactly where it came from, and I wouldn't eat any meat I didn't know where it came from. But he features a regenerative farm and with silvopasture, crop rotation, animal rotation, having chickens follow the cows and therefore clean up the parasites that any cows had, and it's this incredibly robust, completely closed loop, amazing system. And it's a very famous man who...
Is it Joel Salatin?
Yes.
Thank you, Third M Homes.
Thank you. It's just, when it's right there on the tip of your tongue. It's Joel Salatin. Look up his work. He writes blogs. He's been featured in every newspaper. Many articles on it. But that's sort of the gold standard in truly sustainable ecosystem-based land management and farming. So if you don't know him, you should.
I think I have a new obsession. That silvopasture sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So you just have like forested area and you, wow.
And there's this lady on Instagram, and I can't remember her handle right now, but she keeps her chickens in the forest and they roost in the trees. And then she uses pigs on the perimeter, and the pigs scare off predators from the chickens.
Right.
So she doesn't need to have like a traditional chicken coop or anything. They just get to like roam free and access all of the amazing like nutrients and wildlife and stuff in the leaf litter of the forest.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's so rad.
And people forget how badass pigs are, but
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. Like I want pigs and sheep and ducks and chickens and quail.
There's a farm sanctuary in Harriman that I've been out to for a few times, and if you ever want to feel like a Norse god, go on a tour there.
I always want to feel like a Norse
Yeah,
god.
because you'll have a goat at each hand while you're walking, and oftentimes there will be pigs committing pranks against the other animals there, and it's the greatest thing in the world. So
I love everything that you just said.
it's
Everything that came out of your mouth. Freaking funny.
Okay.
If anybody's new and wasn't here right at the beginning, the man behind the camera, his name is Lee. He is the newest addition to the Yard Farmer team. He's here with us full time, helping us do content and make things.
I'm so happy to be here.
And it's super rad.
Okay, we're going black screen, and now we're not. Yeah,
We're just
We're
doing
gonna
a
try
quick.
that.
We're doing a quick little reset.
and now I know why I saw those articles on YouTube about how to stop your Sony A7 III from overheating.
So we'll read
In
those.
media
We'll watch
mode.
those next.
Yeah, that'll be our next trick.
Okay.
So, okay, two guys and some lances. You can help get anything with a feather, especially fat ducks.
Hey, I love you. I'm so glad you're here watching this. If anybody watching this live doesn't follow Two Guys in Some Land, it's a source of daily joy for me. So
That sounds amazing.
obsessed with you. Yeah. Do you wanna watch a lot of some incredibly robust birds
So Rubenesque ducks.
and some gay farmers farming?
Nice.
The best thing.
That sounds like the
It's
greatest
best
content in the
thing-
world.
Best thing on my timeline. Cleanses the timeline every time.
Yeah, we've got people getting very excited about their content. So a refresher on what we're drinking.
I am a very small little lady drinking a very normal sized can of beer. This is not a large can of beer at all.
That's a 32 ounce
This
beer.
is just it's just a 32 ounce. It's just a 32 ounce can of beer.
Yeah.
I'm drinking Fisher Brewing Lemonade Stand Sour, which is a Marionberry lemonade sour, which my dear friend Lee provided me.
Yeah, it's a full pint.
It's just well, a pint ain't that? Oh, it's a pint.
Yep.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, and I'm drinking the Saison Sabbath, which is not quite as strong as the sour, but it's good stuff.
If you live in Utah and you don't have this, what are you even doing?
And you know how much these giant cans of beer
How
are?
much are these giant cans of beer?
$7. Just go to the front and say, I want one of those big fat beers.
Isn't their pint of beer like in the thing? It's $5 though.
Hmm?
Isn't their pint $5?
Well, this is the Crowler. You take it home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But my recommendation, if you've never been to Fisher, since it's across the street from my house, go in, tell one of the people there that you're very interested in their beer, and you can get a little flight for $1. And they can sell you like a tray of flights, and you can just sample everything.
Yep.
The Blondowski is really good. Their stouts are amazing,
Yep.
but we're big fans of sours right now. So,
Yeah. If there are any straight men watching this, I doubt there are. I am not your niche market, but I did have like one of the most effective like men hitting on me experiences happen at Fisher. I was happily happily married, but he turned around. We said like 3 words to each other. I'm just waiting for the beer. He says, "I'll have a pint and one for her too, please." And then he just looked at me, nodded, walked away, and I just was like,
that person's an angel.
and if I was single, it would have worked. It would have worked. So that's the tip for any straight man.
Oh, sorry that the audio cut out there. $7 for the Crowlers, which they actually can there, and
We're doing a Fisher spot now.
yeah. Well, we'd love for them to sponsor our content. So, have you ever grown Concord grapes?
I've never grown grapes. I have a dog, and I'm just a little too nervous about it. She's highly food motivated. I know nothing. I got nothing for you.
Trampy Trash Panda says they've tried to not grow Concord grapes, yet they seem to thrive in their area. If I remember Washington State.
I mean, that sounds great. Yeah. I went to Hell's Backbone, which is an absolutely fabulous restaurant in Escalante, Utah, this past fall, and they were serving or selling jars of grape jelly from 100-year-old grapevines that were still growing there. So if you have like a fabulous old grapevine, like cherish it.
Oh.
Benefit from the yields, like make jam, make jelly.
Okay, if you have questions, please ask away. We are going to just stay live until we run out of questions, but we have somewhat run out of questions.
Oh.
When is the right time to fertilize fruit trees in the spring?
Now.
Now? Is there a time that it's too late, or do they?
No, like, am I gonna be unpopular here and just say I don't care as long as you do it? I feel like that people get way too hung up on that kind of stuff, and it ends up freaking them out and scaring them, and then they don't do it at all. If you're using an organic fertilizer that is derived from, things like cottonseed meal or blood meal or bat guano or whatever, you're not going to burn your plants. You're not going to over fertilize. You're not going to do anything wrong. Like, it's just not that complicated. So just give your trees a little love once a year and it'll be okay. I just don't like to freak people out with the nitty gritty of it.
Right. Sometimes, yeah, people do though. There are folks that I need a spreadsheet for everything. I need to know when the right time of year is and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I fertilize my trees in the spring. I fertilize my garden every 2 weeks throughout the season. Perennials I do spring and fall. Roses I do spring and fall. That's it. And I don't really I haven't done my trees or roses yet. I'll probably get around to it next week. The trees and the roses will both be fine for it. So I just try not to freak people out too much with the intensity of that.
And roses aren't quite as fussy as people think they are they?
They're not.
No, they're pretty badass.
They're here to, you can go right over them with a lawnmower and they'll come back. They'll be like, you thought you got rid of me, bitch? Nuh-uh.
Lindsay on YouTube wants to know what your favorite goldfish pond plants are.
Oh, watercress. I don't have aquaculture plants right off the top of my head. I do have books on it, and then I open them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
good resource.
There's only a limited amount of stuff I can keep in there. But cattails, 1000%. And if you haven't read the work of Robin Wall Kimmerer and all of the amazing medicinal uses and topical uses of cattails, literally can treat sunburns. It's incredible. And they're just such important, they're on the edges, right? And we value the edges in permaculture because there's so much ecologically in yields that can happen where two things meet and two ecosystems meet. So if you don't have cattails in your pond, you gotta get cattails in your pond. Grow some watercress. That's all I got for you at this time.
Have you studied medicinal beer much?
Have I studied medicinal beer?
Yeah.
No, Lee, but I would like you to tell our fans about medicinal beer.
I'll have to read more about it, but I was reading a little bit about medicinal beers where instead of using hops, they use things like rosemary as the bittering agents, because as a tonic, that can actually help soothe upset stomach and other issues. So we'll look more into it.
Can it still be a beer if it's not made with hops?
Yeah, you're just looking for a bittering agent.
I feel like that sounds fake.
I wouldn't lead you down the wrong track.
That doesn't sound real.
I mean, all tea doesn't have to be black, right?
I just watched a TikTok of a beautiful woman wearing elf ears who made coffee out of dandelion roots. Harvested all the dandelions before they flower. Apparently that's important. Do I know why? Absolutely not.
They might be a little sweeter. I'm not going to argue with an elf.
You can't argue with an elf. The elf knows what he's doing. The elf knows.
Dehydrated in the Desert wants to know if you will be at the Wasatch Community Garden Sale next week.
Yes. I will be, but that feels weird for my own safety.
Oh, no. I think it's more like an excitement thing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But just in
I'd
case,
love to see you.
We'll be in disguise.
Yeah, I frequent a lot of the native plant sales around town, so you might see me.
Katie did wants to know if you would have found a fix for your headaches.
Thank you for asking. That is so nice. I'm still kind of figuring it out. I'm trying to keep myself out of situations where I have to actively mask because that's what causes the tension in the back. The thing that I think is going to fix it, but I haven't had the chance because my life is pure chaos embodied, is the myofascial release. So I'm going to be seeing a specialist to do myofascial release massage to try to release all of this tension that I keep in the back of my head. But again, I say I'm going to do yoga every day.
When?
My life is...
You're saving the world through permaculture and sustainable landscaping. How are you going to do?
Well, Lee, you've joined us full time. You're going to be helping me out and
I'll be leading you through a yoga routine every morning before we start the day.
I wake up, it's just like and Lee's like, get out of bed, you gotta take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's nothing like a 53-year-old gorilla helping you do your yoga. Okay, I don't know this word, but I love it, and I'm assuming it's Danish or Swedish. Thoughts on doing hugelkultur style raised beds? I hear mixed reviews about whole pieces of wood, which they have a ton of, and I kind of know where you're going.
Lee knows what I'm gonna say about the logs, and I need to do a video. Lee, we need to do a video on this immediately. Okay. People be putting logs in their beds right now. Like, this is the time of year that this is happening. We need to stop it before they do it. If you practice true Hugelkultur, which is a German word, Lee.
Oh, well, they're all from the same root language.
Hill culture, because Lee has a German wife. Mm-hmm. Now the nod he just let out and the sigh he just let out was like, I brought shame upon my wife's ancestors.
Oh no, I'm just gonna hear about it when I get home.
But so it's a German thing where you build up these hills with logs underneath, and the logs decay very slowly. If you do it exactly by the book, how the gentleman who coined the term wants you to do it, you can see some success. I'm very fascinated in it, I'm very fascinated by it as a practice. However, what we have done in not traditional Hugelkultur style is we're just picking up some logs and throwing them in some raised beds and calling it a fancy word. And that's not what it is. That's not the actual practice of hilling up and creating these berms and growing directly into the berms. We're just throwing logs in beds. And to the mixed points that you're hearing, what you do when you put that much large solid carbon in a raised bed is that the bacteria that are required to break down that carbon require use of basically all of the nitrogen in your bed. Nitrogen being one of the primary macronutrients that are required to grow things. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So it's literally one of the three that's just not available. So I never recommend it. I really don't recommend it. It's an advanced gardening practice that requires a lot of observation and tweaking. And when people took that and made it marketable by saying you can save all of this money and just throw a bunch of logs in your bed, and isn't this so great and easy and cheap, and made that and went viral because of it, let's be real, that's why it spread so much. They were taking a very, very advanced idea and oversimplifying it to beginner gardeners who don't know how to observe and tweak, and instead they're going to watch all of their plants turn yellow because all the nitrogen is gone. So if you have logs in your bed, if you're watching this and you have logs in your bed currently, nitrogen heavy fertilizers will be your best friend for the indefinite future, because logs of any sort of notable size will take years, if not decades, to break down. So if budget is a concern, because we all know dirt is not dirt cheap. We know that it's not. I would highly recommend doing a natural unscreened wood mulch, like one that you get from Chip Drop, or you could buy a wood mulcher and you could zip that right down, put that into the raised bed. Because those pieces are already so small, they're going to break down significantly more quickly than a freaking log, okay? So let's not do the log. Even with the wood mulch, I would strongly recommend either cover cropping with a nitrogen fixing cover crop over the winters, or even maybe for like a full season and then grow in it the next season. Or if you don't have time to cover crop, you still need to go pretty heavy-handed with an organic nitrogen-heavy fertilizer. And I like the ones from Down to Earth Fertilizer the best.
It's good stuff. Mm-hmm. I love this question, and we're big fans of Sawdust Fairy because it's a great name.
Yeah.
Fun ideas for a sensory garden to get toddlers excited about plants. So far on their list is lamb's ear, and they laugh about it, but actually, that was the thing that my kids got excited about gardens with, because lamb's ear is so soft. It's very
Can you
texturally
tell me more
fun.
about being in the garden with your kids? That sounds
we had this terrible hill in our backyard in Central Oregon, and I didn't know about cutting swales yet, so I just tried to cut big banks in, and I planted lamb's ear, and it just covered everything. And it's neat and it's fuzzy, but you've got to maintain it, or it gets these huge rangy flowers that will take over the yard. But my kids would go back in the yard and just pet the lamb's ear because it's so soft and fuzzy, like a lamb's ear. Mm-hmm. So any other suggestions or ideas for that?
Well, I'm thinking about textures specifically. So herbaceous perennials in general.
Like thymes, you can smell
thymes and oreganos, lavender. I'm almost saying, like, to me, the ideal sensory garden we would stack functions on top of just it being a sensory garden and make it a food forest. Because to me, like a kid wandering through a food forest where there are strawberries.
What do you want to eat? Let's go get it.
Yeah, there's strawberries, and they can harvest currants and chokecherry and serviceberry. And you know, I mean, they probably can't reach like the plums and the apricots at this point, but you know, whatever. And all of the herbs are very fragrant. There's chives growing, and they can smell the chives. And like chives are smooth, and lavender is prickly, and it sounds fabulous. And then you get all of this amazing, magical, edible stuff.
Yeah, we had a woolly thyme, and it was just fun to run your hands across it because your hands just smell really good.
I love woolly thyme and creeping thyme with the color. I like the mix of like the silvery green of the woolly thyme and like the reddish purple of the creeping thyme, and then when you walk on it and the smell just hits ya.
Salty Grows confirms that you can indeed make beer using something else in place of hops. They had a dandelion IPA that used dandelion in place of hops.
So Ryan says we can make beer out of dandelions, and the elf girl says we can make coffee out of dandelions.
I made rosemary beer.
I got a lot of dandelions in my yard. I'm not getting rid of them.
Well, and supposedly,
they're cute.
Supposedly, I mean, we'd have to confirm this, but supposedly dandelion supports liver health, and supposedly it helps with reducing inflammation. I have heard about the inflammation
and
before.
The greens are good. Like, just go get the greens if you have. If your yard has not been sprayed with Roundup or whatever yet, and you know that it's organic and nice out there, just go get those greens and put them in your salad tomorrow. Yep. It's good. It's good for you.
It is. Yeah, so many people just kind of give up on their dandelions, and they're one of our first early crops, really, if you think about it that way.
I mean, you see it in the spring, like the bees are out finally, and that's all that they're on. They need the dandelions.
Is sowing a nitrogen-fixing cover crop over wood chips as simple as have wood chips, throw clover seeds on top, and watch it grow?
I really appreciate this question. You want to put an inch or so of compost on top of the wood chips so that they have a nice little soft, little nutritious little pillow to germinate in. And I'd get a biodiverse cover crop, not just like straight clover. Greencover.com has some really interesting ones. You can actually build your own mixes of cover crop. I would, however, cross-reference the ingredients just to make sure that there's nothing invasive in your area. For example, a really, really popular plant that we see in gardens and as well as cover crop mixtures is sweet alyssum, but in California, it's invasive as hell. So you want to be really careful with that kind of stuff. Like popular garden lore and what's actually ecological for your area are at odds a lot of the time, and that's kind of something I'm trying to help spread awareness about, that you don't want to just like listen to this kind of outdated gardening information that exists separately from nature. We want to integrate our gardens with nature.
Are there types of winter peas, overwintering peas that would be really good for that?
Fava beans.
Yeah.
It's not really a pea, but that's
it's a legume.
In zone 6 and 7, which is where we are. You can absolutely overwinter some favas. You might want to tunnel them or cold frame them. And you would want to get them established a good 8 weeks prior to the frost, so like August. What I end up doing is I end up planting them while my vegetables are still growing, because Utah's a very, very strange climate.
Yes, we are.
Where there is no fall season. I'm harvesting tomatoes up to 2 days before we have a frost and everything dies. Like there is no
that's anywhere from October to December.
There's no like let's grow carrots and broccoli and lettuces for like a nice month and a half. Like that's not a thing here. It's 100 degrees and then it's 30 degrees. We're lucky to have a week of like nice chilly like 45-degree weather, I feel like, right?
That's what we all want, but we don't get it.
We don't get it.
Yeah.
So in Utah specifically, in about July, August, I start sowing clover or like legumes, fava beans being one of them, cover crop things that I'm going to end up keeping in the beds all winter long in order to keep the mycorrhizal activity of my garden going. But I have to do it while the tomatoes are still growing. So it ends up just becoming the living mulch for the tomatoes. And it's great. They're pumping nitrogen into the tomatoes while the tomatoes are still growing. They're shading the soil. They're keeping everything moist. They're suppressing weeds. I love a living mulch in a garden bed. I really do.
Vesper Sky Homestead adding onto the sensory garden for kids.
Thank you.
Edible berries without thorns like blueberries
Yep.
could be great. And the fun thing about blueberries, you can make blueberry tea. You can also make a blueberry dye and show kids how they can stain or dye fabric,
So nice.
which is really fun stuff.
Oh gosh, I love natural dyeing. Like marigolds are amazing for that.
They are. And planting potatoes so they can dig them up when they're ripe, which is like digging for treasure that you can then eat.
That is so cute.
What
I
a
don't
genius idea.
I don't have kids. I don't think about this stuff.
Yeah.
But that is adorable. I love that. If you're watching this and you're in Utah, blueberries are an uphill battle.
Yeah.
I would strongly recommend you not try it just unless you want to be pulling your hair out. Unless you're the kind of person who just loves an experiment, you love a challenge. But what you will be doing is amending your soil to keep your pH acidic, because everything here in Utah basic as hell, right? Mm-hmm. So just be careful. My recommendation for people who want the sensory experience of a blueberry, who want to have the texture of a blueberry, is to grow service berries, which are native to Utah. Absolutely one of my favorite shrubby trees to put in a landscape ever, regardless of if you want to harvest the berries or not, because the wildlife love them too. And it's like blueberry in texture, but it tastes more like apples.
We have a big choke cherry tree in our yard that I don't personally eat them, but the previous owner still comes and harvests them to make jam. And the birds just go bonkers for it.
Choke cherry is one of my favorites for wildlife habitats.
Awesome. 2 guys and some land.
Hi, you're my
Is
favorite.
there a native hedge-like bush like a boxwood that works in Salt Lake?
Look at you just hyping me up and asking questions where you don't even live in Salt Lake. I'm obsessed with you. I use elderberries and service berries to create hedge-like shrubs all the time that are native. There is not... we have some native junipers and native evergreen conifers in general, but we don't have anything like a boxwood. Not really. Not that sort of broadleaf evergreen. That's something where in a in a Mediterranean style design, I will try to keep the native plants above 80%, but I will put in a couple boxwoods, and I will put in a couple lavender plants, and I will put in a couple of things that just support the Mediterranean aesthetic, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do aesthetically.
Okay, Kristen is very excited about her consultation with you next month, so that's fun.
I'm so happy you're here.
And that goes straight into our next question.
So
Anna wants to know if you do consultations. They've never gardened and they're just starting and need recommendations.
Oh my gosh, are you a plant? I love when people are asking these questions that allow me to promote myself. Thank you so much. I feel so great about that. Yes, I do consultations, and my website is yardfarmer.co. YardFarmer.co, and I got all the info you need about booking and scheduling. I am booked out a little far, but I think I'm going to open up a couple more spots on my calendar, just get some people in.
I've seen your calendar.
My calendar stresses Lee out. My calendar stresses everyone out.
I also grew up in a household where, the calendar was the moon, and that was that. So I see calendars, and I'm like, why are you submitting yourself to this dark sorcery?
My new administrative assistant, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I understand their function. In theory. Okay. Let's see if we have some more questions here. Is it too late to direct sow milkweed seeds, the monarch kind? My plants died in December freeze.
I don't know where you are. If you're in Utah, you can go to Growing Empire Nursery and get some starts of Asclepias tuberosa. I don't think she has Speciosa, which is a shame because Speciosa is my favorite for Utah. I would recommend buying some starts. I really would. There are online retailers that do it. If you're on the East Coast, Garden for Wildlife is a really good one. If you were to sow seeds, you would need to get seeds that were kept at a cold temperature and stratified for the entire winter. Because what you want to do is sow seeds after the frosts have solidified, so there's no opportunity for them to germinate, because that's the issue, right? If the seeds germinate and then the frost comes, they're too tender and they'll die. But you want to still have them out there in the winter so they can be at those freezing temperatures for significant amounts of time. You can fake that in a refrigerator or freezer. Is it a refrigerator? You got to look it up. Don't trust me. Don't trust anything I say.
It's good beer. Question about amending Southern California clay soil for sod or for grass. That's the best way to go about doing that.
Okay, great question. Clay is not as bad as people think. Clay is able to transmit nutrients to plants significantly better than sand. For example, your sod will do okay in clay much more than it will do okay in sand. If you are in Southern California and you have full sun and you haven't laid your sod yet, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you exactly what to go get. I want you to go get UC Verde buffalo grass. It is a seed. Buffalo grass loves clay soil. UC Verde specifically was generated. What is the word I'm looking for? Designed? I don't care. The people at UC Davis were the ones that came up with that specifically for Southern California and southwestern deserts. And it is a native to the United States turf grass. And once you establish it, it is xeric, my friend.
Not much water.
You're going to need to water that like a tenth of the amount of a bluegrass lawn. So please, for the love of the Lord in heaven, please just go get yourself some buffalo grass. Regardless, if you just want to soften up some clay soil, it really depends how compacted it is. If it's actually just true clay and not nutrient deficient and compacted, adding a bunch of compost and wood chips and organic matter will kind of be enough for those plants to germinate and root and then just kind of get in there and start doing their thing and healing your soil. If your soil is dead, which a soil test will determine that for you, then especially if you're going to put a sod down, one of the simplest things to do is to amend with a bunch of the organic fertilizers, compost, wood chips, all this organic matter, and then till. But I only recommend tilling if there's nothing worth saving in your soil, because tilling is a disturbance that damages microbial activity significantly. However, there are times we can't get around it, so I never want to say that I'm no-till as in never, never, ever. I'm saying if your soil is useless, let's till to make it not useless. But if your soil is salvageable, let's plant things, let's do cover cropping, let's get some really hardy perennials in there with deep tap roots, let's layer on compost and wood chip, like let's do things like that. So if you have salvageable clay soil, if your yard has full sun, and all of those things are still true, UC Verde buffalo grass. And I'm going to be mad if you put Kentucky bluegrass in.
That's great.
Can I just do a quick PSA about cool season grass, America? I'm going to just rant for a second. This is something y'all need to understand, okay? I'm about to be very stern. This is something y'all need to understand, okay? People think that when they stop watering their lawn dies in the summer, right? False. Dwight Schrute. False. That is not what happens, okay? Your Kentucky bluegrass lawn is a cool season lawn. That means that it wants to be alive in the cool season. Hear the word? Are we hearing it? We got it? Cool season. And it wants to be dormant in the summer. And so I'm sorry, we just went dark on YouTube just as I was getting to the thesis of this. So if we want the cool season lawn to be green all summer long, we have to trick it into thinking it's still the cool season by overwatering it to oblivion. And that sucks. Like, that is so stupid to me that we just have to fake nature to make a lawn think that it's still the cold season when it just wants to be dormant as part of the natural cycle of nature. Like, it's so irritating to me. So there are warm season grasses if you live in a really hot place, like buffalo grass, where guess what? It still goes gray and dry and thatchy for part of the year, but it's the winter. And then it warms up and it goes, oh, it's time to be green and fabulous and soft and beautiful. And then all summer long, it's green and fabulous and soft and beautiful, and you don't have to water it. And you also don't have to mow it because it doesn't get tall.
Yeah, it's like 3 inches tall.
It's like 3 inches tall.
That's amazing.
So that's my rant. We're all using cool season grasses in hot climates for no good reason. And that's dumb. and we just need to completely change the way we think about grass.
I agree.
Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
What are your thoughts on azalea, rhododendron, or mountain laurel as broadleaf evergreens?
I love them in the places where they are native. So if you have native azaleas, use it. If you've got rhododendrons, use it. I wish I could grow rhododendrons here.
Yeah.
They're not native to here. They don't like alkaline soil, so we don't got them.
Yeah, my whole garden history is azaleas, rhododendrons. Yeah, Pacific Northwest.
Pacific Northwest kind of guy.
They just, they're weeds there.
No, so. I love them. I love them. I just also live in Utah, so my perspective is such.
Logan on YouTube planted a wildflower bed, but to their horror, the other day they saw a bunch of birds eating all the seeds. How do you protect the seeds so the birds don't eat them until after they've grown?
You have to get a little net. No, not like the kind where you catch the birds. Are you imagining me with like a little bird catching net?
It's the beer.
No. They have the very fine mesh garden covers. Just a quick Google of any of those keywords will find it. You have to put down the mesh just to sort of screen it out so the light can still get through and air can still permeate. They still have oxygen and access to water and all of that, but the birds can't get it. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
I mean, they do love them. Yeah.
It's seeds.
You made some very happy birds.
The word's bird seed. It's literally seed. I would also, this is kind of a permaculture thing. It's just a very simplified version of that. But in permaculture, if we have pests, we need to redirect the pests by luring them elsewhere. So get a lot of bird feeders, I'm not joking, and put them far away from wherever this thing is, because they're going to go where it's easier first, and then they'll go where it's harder second. So if they have abundant access to easy, delicious, like sunflower seeds and stuff, and they don't have to work for it, and they don't have to search for it, and they don't have to dig it out of the dirt, they are going to be there more than there in your lawn. But I would also still get the mesh. I would do both.
Gabrielle says, hi there. What is something you recommend mixing with UC verde grass to be cost effective?
I'm sorry, I really don't recommend. Like buffalo grass is one of those things where it's a little finicky. It spreads by rhizomes. It's warm season, so a lot of the cool season stuff like clover and other grasses and stuff just they're awake at different times. Buffalo grass is one of those things that kind of just wants to be buffalo grass. But I strongly recommend when people are designing their lawns into their yard that they are picking like one efficient shape for their lawn, and they're seeding the buffalo grass there, and then they're surrounding that efficient shape where they're going to play with their kids and their dog's going to be able to go out and use the bathroom or whatever. That one functional space, and then they're surrounding all of that with as much native biodiversity as possible. So I'm not saying buffalo grass monoculture. I'm just saying your one lawn area is going to be this fabulous little native turf grass spot, and then you're going to have all of the other biodiversity outside of it.
Flower Girl asks, where can you find buffalo grass in Utah?
Does Biograss Farm sell a buffalo grass?
You're the expert. I don't know.
I mean, you usually just order the seeds. My new favorite, or the plugs, my new favorite variety of buffalo grass is called Sun Dancer buffalo grass, because you can sow it as a seed, which makes it significantly more cost effective. And I'm obsessed with that because the plugs are what makes it pricey. And typically you would get the plugs from High Country Gardens. There are a couple of other online retailers, and they're an investment for sure. It's triple or quadruple the cost of just getting a bag of lawn seed, for example. You also do have it grow significantly faster because they're already established as plugs, so there's trade-offs. Just to kind of give you the rundown of the different types, High Country Gardens sells Legacy as well as Prestige. Legacy and Prestige buffalo grass. I believe it's Legacy that is available down to colder climates, and Prestige is a warmer climate and up. Sorry, that wasn't eloquent, but you get what I'm saying. So triple check that it's hardy down to your zone. Triple check that you have enough sun in April and October for the buffalo grass to break dormancy. That's really critical because people will look at their summer sun and think that they have enough sun, but you need to make sure that your April sun is good enough. What other buffalo grass tips? I would say if you can afford the plugs, do the plugs because it'll grow in faster and then you'll just have a more usable space. But if money is an issue, Sun Dancer seeds, I'm kind of amazed by the fact that works, that we can sow it as seeds. Normally the issue is that buffalo grass is so slow growing that it's just not practical to sow it as a seed because the birds will get it before it can germinate, basically. But since you asked about Utah specifically, I'm going to put you on something else. Go to Biograss Farms, and I want you to look up their bio-native seed and or sod, which blows my freaking mind. I'm obsessed with this. And as a landscape designer, it's so gratifying because I can design in like a new native meadow lawn that they can have installed immediately
roll out
as a sod.
Amazing.
Like as a landscape designer, this was truly like an angel singing kind of discovery. But this is for Utah specifically a native meadow using all of the low prairie grasses that used to grow right here in this valley before we paved over every inch of it. Phenomenal. And the thing about it that I find appealing is that you can choose your own adventure with it. If you really need it to look neater, it can be mowed to about 3 inches. They prefer 5, but it can be mowed down to 3 depending on your preference. If you want to just let it be a meadow, it maxes out at about 12 to 15 inches and will just be a meadow. And so especially for areas that aren't directly in front of the home, like a side yard or like something kind of tucked off, if you just are like, what if I had an amazing native wildflower meadow? Put down this sod or sow it as a seed and then scatter Utah native wildflowers in it. and you've just built yourself a native wildflower. Whoa, beer. A native habitat is what I was trying to say.
We just had Brandon Clifford chime in that Great Basin Seed has Sundance buffalo grass seed, and they're in Ephraim, Utah, and can be ordered online.
So Brandon, hi. Brandon's one of my clients based out of Eagle Mountain, and he is the one that put me onto Biograss Farms. And we were in a consultation, and he's telling me about something and blowing my mind. And I was like, who should be paying who here? So hi, Brandon.
That's awesome.
Lovely to see you here.
Is there a good native turf grass for the Northeast, literally for their two very little efficient shapes of lawn?
For the Northeast, so the sad short answer is no, not really. The longer, slightly happier answer is that you can look into native ground covers, like things like phlox, for example, or things that are not necessarily lawn but are native. Or you can look into things that are really well adapted, like an eco lawn blend, which is a mix of low growing fescues and clover, which will perform very, very well in the Northeast and will be significantly lower maintenance and more biodiverse than like a standard bluegrass.
Are there resources for that, like at Garden for Wildlife?
For the eco lawn blend?
Yeah, not so much.
And Garden for Wildlife, since you are in the Northeast, I'll tell you about it, since I may or may not be working with them in the near future. But they're an amazing e-commerce brand that is providing native plants by mail, and they are a child company or a sister company, however you want to look at it, of the National Wildlife Federation, which is really cool and special. So if you are really stumped on where to get your hands on native plants on the East Coast, really anywhere from the East Coast to the Midwest, I think East Texas is about as far west as they go. It's a great place where you can have it literally show up to your door.
It's like Texas, Kansas, the Dakotas is about the cutoff line.
Right up there. They are expanding though. Like we're already talking about how to get some Utah nurseries on there.
We'll open up in one tiny ribbon of a yard.
Yeah.
It'll work perfectly.
Thanks for being patient on YouTube, everybody. We'll fix this for next time.
I actually found the article, and I will have this. This will not happen next week, YouTube. I promise you.
Every week we learn something.
Every week. But man, it just looks and sounds good this week, so I'm happy. Deb on YouTube asks what your first steps for turning a yard with a small food garden bed into a food forest.
I love that. So just expanding the food forest. I would probably sheet mulch. I would pick the footprint. I'd look at your yard from overhead, like on Google Earth or something, and I'd design a footprint that feels right. Oh my
God.
What?
Daryl. What an amazing idea.
I'm confused by what?
Well, because everybody has Google Earth, and you can look at your yard, and you've got a snapshot of what your overhead...
I guess I just didn't think that was that novel, because I do that every day for work.
I have drawn out the entire blueprint of my backyard with measuring and all this other stuff. Not realizing.
Sweet summer child.
I'm twice your age.
You sweet summer child. No.
Google Earth. I could have just gone tuk, 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 and there it is.
And I would strongly recommend you actually go download Google Earth Pro as opposed to going on Google Maps, because Google Earth Pro has a measuring tool, so you can actually just click the ruler button and go boop, boop. Oh, that corner of my house to that where I want the food forest to go, that's 14 feet, and you'll know everything that you need to know about your yard. Lee is having a little panic attack behind the camera.
This is relief.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah. I can't. I was so shocked because I guess I literally do that every day where I type.
Well, you're a child of the information age.
I'm a little millennial babe. Yeah. Every day I have my consultations for the day, and I type their addresses in, and I pull them up on Google Earth, and I stalk them essentially, but with permission.
And old guys like me are like, "How did you know it's 27 feet away?
How do you know that?"
Yep.
So sorry. Back to your question. I'm so sorry for the tangent. Pull up your home on Google Earth. Find out what dimensions of your new food forest you want to be. Get yourself some landscape edging so you can edge that out nice and clean. And then get some cardboard, some compost, some wood chips down, and just kind of let that sit for a second. You could sow a cover crop on it just to start prepping the soil as you're planning out your food forest. That would be kind of cool. Then I would start putting it in. I mean, you want to think about your fruit trees as sort of a canopy. Depending on how large your property is, you can actually get true canopy trees, which are these native wildlife supporting massive, 50 to 100 and beyond foot trees. Most urban areas, we can't actually do a canopy, so we do a canopy of understory shrubs. So that's like serviceberry, elderberry, all of the commercially, known fruit trees, apples, plums, you know what I'm saying? We do that. Then we do berries and other food-producing shrubs. In Utah, golden currant is my favorite of those. and then herbaceous perennials, and then a ground cover. And that can be a forest that you walk through, that can be a landscaping bed. Like when we say food forest, it doesn't mean you have to create this thing that you're in and this thing that you have to walk through and it feels like a forest. You could literally take a 5x10 planter on the side of a home and plant canopy, understory, herbaceous layer, ground cover, and have an incredibly high yield producing, food producing perennial bed per square foot just available to you. So any available space or spot that you have.
I remember one of our former mayors was going to take one of our underutilized golf courses around 2010 and have that converted into a food forest, and it never happened. And I was really depressed about that because
that's a really radical idea for Salt Lake. The idea of publicly available food is not.
Yeah.
That's not great for here.
Because we have some people with some severe food insecurity that would make a big difference for.
There's some really cool stuff that Tree Utah is doing. If you live in Utah and you aren't aware, they have food forestry and demonstration gardens in Salt Lake that you can go tour, and it's phenomenal and fabulous. And if you're not familiar with Tree Utah as an organization in general, I'd strongly recommend that you go check it out.
They're really awesome. They have tree planting parties basically a couple times a year that you can get involved in. Okay, Kakalaki wants to know, they bought a pack of wildflower seeds. Can they plant them directly, or do they need to make sure that they're all native first?
Oh, yeah, definitely make sure they're all native first. Like, I'm very serious about this. Google the scientific names of every single one and then just pop the words native range at the end. You would be shocked how many wildflower seeds contain non-native varieties. I will add a couple caveats here in that I enjoy certain cut flowers that are not native. Like cosmos, for example, are native to Central America, and I adore putting them in my cut flower bed. So I strategically will grow some non-native flowers, but you want to make sure that the majority of what you're putting in your yard is actually supporting native biodiversity. So, and you definitely want to make sure that it's not invasive. Like sweet alyssum, like we said before, it's in a lot of wildflower seed mixes, and it's genuinely, truly invasive to a lot of the West Coast. So be very, very careful with that. It would be worth Googling the native ranges as well as just putting the keyword invasive at the end of every single one of those. And if it is, just throw it out and start over. And there are amazing companies that sell like truly native wildflower mixes. So don't get tricked.
Yeah, we ended up with Love Lives bleeding all over our yard, which I guarantee is not native.
No. No, most wildflower mixes are not native because it's about what's cheap and commercially available and marketable and all of those things. And you do have to look. If you live in Utah, dryland horticulture is a great place to source native wildflower seeds and or starts. It's really fun. Or, look for, just Google Midwest Native Wildflower Bend, West Coast Native Wildflower Bend, whatever. I can hear myself saying words that are not words. Blend.
Yeah, I'm also distracting you with my camera wizardry right now.
Yeah,
so
I'll fix it for next time.
Oh, I fixed it. It's fixed forever now. So
really?
Thank you, Google.
How'd you do that?
We found a temperature setting, and we're able to tell the camera to stop turning off when it gets warm, and told it to turn off when it gets hot. And it's not getting hot; it was just getting warm. It's a default setting that Sony had baked into the camera.
You're a diva, Sony.
So now it's fixed, and it'll be definitely fixed next time. Thank you, everybody on YouTube, for your patience.
It's nice. Yeah, we appreciate you.
Again, for you folks watching on TikTok, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's just YardFarmer Co., and it's amazing. And we have a lot of instructional videos there, how-tos, and some great, just today we put up a thing on how to do sod cutting.
Yep.
And it's a lot of fun, so we'd appreciate it if you gave it a look and a like.
I will pump what? I'm starting to get silly at this point, and it's just beer. Old age is wild. I'm getting side eye significantly.
Yeah.
But I'd like to push the Discord channel a little bit. So if you're watching and you have not gone over to my Linktree and subscribed to get the invite to the Discord, it's ready to go. We've beta tested it. We are ready to roll it out. I just need to send the email at this point. And it is going to be this community-based server where we are all converting our lawns to native landscapes. And what we are working on, Lee, here behind the camera, as well as myself, we're creating tutorial videos on the 4 major ways to convert lawn to a native landscape: solarizing, sod cutting, sheet mulching, and overseeding. So we'll be posting those in the channel as tutorials and then being there to answer your questions. you'll be there to answer each other's questions, to post your progress, and it'll just be this like sort of community effort.
Yeah, it's a dark world out there. We want to shine a light.
Yeah. So we're gonna be planting en masse this spring and summer.
Mary asks if you've considered transitioning your company into a more egalitarian structure. I'm not quite sure what that means.
I mean, we are.
Yeah.
Aren't we? We're doing some like anti-capitalist profit sharing stuff.
Oh yeah, that stuff.
Break-even business model.
Sorry, I'm such an anarchist. I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, I mean that's so we're still figuring out how it works, and we're still figuring out what the company even is, right? Because while it's amazing that it's grown this fast and we're able to support the lifestyles of several people at this point, it's like kind of wild that it's so fast.
Right.
So but the plan is break-even business model with full profit sharing and equal pay for everyone, and that's where we're headed. And employee number one sitting right there behind the camera.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Anna on TikTok says that they heard that SLC is upping the tree plank, the verification there that they're trying to get the west side of Salt Lake City to plant more trees. Is that true? Is there actually a program behind that? I'm
not actually aware of an updated tree planting program, but I will look it up because I would like to know.
I know our current mayor, Aaron Mendenhall, said something about trying to up the amount of trees on the west side of Salt Lake, so like Rose Park, Glendale, Poplar Grove, to several thousand more, but I'm not sure the exact number.
Thank goodness. We see direct correlations with urban forestry programs and like big initiatives to plant trees. Mm-hmm. 10 years later, we see a direct correlation to the reduction of asthma in children in the area. It's so important, not just for the health of like wildlife and the ecosystem, but the health of all of us, that we have more trees. It's so important.
Yeah, we've seen the 300 West reconstruction that's been going on, which has been really pissing a lot of people off.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that they have widened, they put in a dedicated bicycle lane and a dedicated pedestrian lane, but they've also put trees on both sides of the lanes, which will grow into a tree canopy.
And then you'll have a walking path with a tree canopy.
Which means you'll be shaded and you won't be getting scorched on this horrible strode that's been built in the middle of the city. So.
And for how disruptive the construction is, I understand why people are upset, but also to understand how unwalkable the west side of Salt Lake was and what a significant equity issue that was.
Well, people with wheelchairs couldn't go down Third West because they had phone poles in the middle of the sidewalk.
Significant social problem that is being addressed, and that makes my heart happy.
If you want to see something cool,
I would.
Where the Costco is on 17th South and 3rd West, they have put in what looks to be a giant rainwater swale cut into the curb, and it's fantastic.
Cutting in Salt Lake. Yeah, I was in Cottonwood Heights. Oh my gosh, my friend thinks I'm insane. So I was in Cottonwood Heights and we were at a city park. I don't know the name of the park. I met her there so that I could push her child in a sled up a hill. The side note is I was dragging the child in the sled up the hill and the child fell out the back and started rolling down. So I'm a great aunt. But regardless, we were there and we were walking around the park and there was this bioswale with a sign that's like, this is a bioswale, but it was too far away to read because it was in the swale. And when I tell you that I took off down the hill and was just in this swale trying to read this stupid sign.
Yep. What's funny is how this lifestyle gets into your head, because I was at the Salt Lake County Main Library earlier this month, and I got all excited because they're going to native landscaping. And I was like taking all these pictures and telling you all about it. I was like, look what they're doing. Gabrielle said that you've taught her so much tonight and that she greatly appreciates your time. So that's what we're here for, right?
That's really nice. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Caitlin wants to know what grasses would be considered native to Colorado.
It's buffalo grass only. It's the only native turf grass turf grass. Let's start there. The only native turf grass, buffalo grass is the only one. If we're talking ornamental grasses, little blue stem, big blue stem, blue grama, technically these could be mowed down to turf height, but they're so gorgeous and beautiful and wildlife supporting when they are allowed to grow to their full height. So those are the number one grasses that I use in perennial landscapes to sort of like give the eye a chance to rest and just give that sort of like swath of blue and green colors. Plant a lot of little blue stem and a lot of blue grama. I think they're fabulous and gorgeous and wonderful.
Deb on YouTube said that it's like hanging out with friends that like plants and that love the live stream. And
I hope that you will bring your own alcohols and then we can partake of the alcohols together.
And if you don't partake,
is this the same Deb who I was supposed to convince her husband? Because I never learned her husband's name. I was going to do a whole PSA.
I think it is the same Deb. Deb, what's your husband's name?
Deb,
so we can do this
tell us your husband's name, because I would love to stare directly into the camera and give a very impassioned PSA to your husband about why grass is bad.
Ben on TikTok is asking what the best time to plant Sundancer buffalo grass is.
Now would be a great time. Now would be an absolutely fabulous, amazing time to sow that.
Yep. And Nathan's very excited to be drinking with us and enjoying the knowledge, so that's awesome.
It's so fun.
Oh, and Mary has a whiskey sour in hand. Good for you. What whiskey are you using, Mary?
Yeah, Mary.
We need to know.
What whiskey are you using?
Oh, it's not the same Deb, but Deb's husband, this Deb. I think Debs have a husband who need convincing about
I just
grass.
want a name of a gentleman so that I can, but I would like it to be a real person so that she could actually show it.
Yeah, because if you have me make up some husband's name, it's going to be something like Rudiger.
Hey, Rudiger, get your act together. Your grass is stupid, Rudiger.
Nathan's having a whiskey and Coke, so.
Oh, I love it. We're having a cocktail party.
Oh, Mary's having 4 Roses whiskey, so not familiar, but I want to be now.
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
How many people do we have here?
All set between both. We're rocking close to 40. So,
that's so rad.
40 people are just like, you know what? Let's
just drink and talk about plants.
All right, so we're calling out Malik. Malik is the person that we're talking
to.
Malik needs convincing to get rid of grass.
So what you're telling me is that Malik
just call him Champ.
Likes just call him Champ.
That's Sawdust Fairy for the win there.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, Malik. So, okay, your wife told me that you don't want to give up your grass lawn. Well, listen here, Champ. I got something to say to you. I'm trying to make it seriously. Listen here, Malik. Listen here, Malik.
This is the worst threat I've ever heard because it's not convincing me that you're threatening at all.
I can't be threatening because it's...
Because you're a very nice person, so...
Grr. Okay, hold on. I really want to do this. I really want to do this for you, Dad. I want to do this. All right.
Well, at this point, we've got people saying their wives need convincing, so...
Okay. I'm here to convince you why lawns are bad. Here's why lawns are bad, everybody. I can't when Lee's laughing like that. Lee's whole body is shaking. I can't. Yes, be seriously.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Well, we already got into the cool season versus warm season and how, especially in the western half of the United States, the lawns don't make any ecological sense. But what else I will tell you is lawns. I'm not doing well. Lawns were installed first in suburbia in Levittown, New York, and they were installed because they were cheap as hell to put in there. And it also provided this aspirational quality of the bourgeoisie. I can't say words today. I've had half a beer in this large can.
It's a strong beer, though.
It's a big-ass beer. Look at this face-sized beer. Anyway, lawns started as this aspirational symbol of the rich, right? Because you didn't have to grow food if you just needed to, play croquet and be an aristocrat. So that's why lawns existed. In Levittown, New York, they had suburbia and they wanted to create this idea of the American dream and the suburban single family home for the very first time. We lived in urban centers or rural areas before then. And they thought, okay, let's put this aspirational thing as the primary landscaping. And it also really helps that it's cheap as hell to install. So lawns, and this is for you, Malik, okay? Damn it, I was doing so well.
No, keep going.
Malik,
oh,
listen.
Scary.
Listen here, champ. Lawns are the cheapest ground cover, bar none, for a developer to install, while also being the most expensive ground cover, bar none, to maintain. Therefore, a developer gets to show up in your life, slap some Kentucky bluegrass sod down, say, bye, I'm going to go make millions of dollars somewhere else, and then strap you with the task of maintaining, watering, fertilizing, mowing, for the rest of your life, buying lawnmowers, buying fertilizer, buying aerators, or paying people who have those things to do the same, therefore funding a multi-billion-dollar lawn care industry that does not need to exist because there are lawns and grasses that do not need to be watered to nearly the same degree and do not need to be mowed. Are you hearing what I'm saying?
Who wants to mow?
If you had a low-growth fescue mix, a mix of creeping fescue, red fescue, maybe some clover, these lawns max out at like 8 inches tall, but they're not straight. They flop over. It's giving Hobbit. It's giving New Zealand. It's giving rolling hills. It's green. It's bright. It's beautiful.
Wave when it's windy.
And guess what? If you wanted it to look, because if you just like, for some reason, culturally you just needed that lawn with those weird stripes on it for some reason just to feel like a man. Well, guess what? He's laughing. Well, guess what? You could still mow it and it would still look like that, but you would only need to mow it once a month. So instead of spending every single Saturday outside with this damn lawnmower for, I don't know, it takes me an hour to mow my lawn, and I live in like a tiny urban cottage, so talk about these huge suburban properties. Being out every single Saturday, you could go out once a month and still have the most banging lawn in town, because also, guess what? Those lawn seeds are more adapted to your climate than Kentucky bluegrass, so they're going to look way greener and way lusher and way prettier with less water, and therefore, I want to say the F word so bad, but Kentucky bluegrass sucks, y'all. Just ecological nightmare anywhere west of the Mississippi. And you have been tricked. I'm sorry, Malik. You have been tricked into spending all of your time and money on something that does not want to grow where it is currently growing. And you could grow something that looks similar, but is easier, cheaper, smarter, better, less water, better for wildlife, easier for you, less money. What are you even doing? What are you even doing, Malik?
You're getting standing ovations all over the internet. If you want more information, look for the thumbnail on YouTube that says lawns are dumb, and that's 6 reasons why lawns
ranted
suck.
for like 7 minutes. It was basically that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's great. Let's pass on the grass for sure. Darling Kate should mow down the cover crop, which is clover, that they're growing around their apple tree.
She's saying, should she mow it down?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can chop and drop, basically. So if you want to use a lawnmower to do that, that's fine. Or you can just take some big shears or whatever you feel like. Just chop it down, put the exact same stuff right down on top. That's going to eventually dry out and thatch and become like a carbon-based mulch. It'll become like a straw. And we see in gardens people use straw. But why would you import some when you have some growing? That's called a closed-loop system. Yay!
And we love a closed-loop system.
Yeah, chop and drop it. Lay it right down. Plant something amazing. I love planting comfrey underneath my fruit trees because it's a dynamic accumulator and it will pull fertilizer and nutrients from way down that isn't bioavailable to your apple tree. And then it will pull it up and store it in the biomass of the comfrey. And then all you have to do is chop up the comfrey and drop that. And now you are continually mulching with a free fertilizer as well as a mulch.
Looks like Drake followed a lot of your advice and says their lawn stays green and don't need to mow monthly. And that's with half an acre less at 400 square feet. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you so much for telling me that.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see how this is being applied in real life. That's very gratifying to me. Thank
Salty
you.
Grows wants to know
Ryan.
what you think about yarrow as a good, whether or not you think it's a good cover crop. They know what they think. Want to know what others think.
Ryan, I want to know what you think. Also, Ryan, you absolute icon. Thank you for being here. I've never thought of it as a cover crop because I like it as a perennial that stays in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I like yarrow as a turf grass. If you mow yarrow about every 3 to 4 weeks, it stays tender. It doesn't form the woody shrubs, and it becomes a hardy as... Again, I just want to curse so bad. I know we can't for the tube, but darn, it becomes hardy as heck. Hardy as heck. And you can play football on it, and it doesn't need any water, and you can do basically anything to it. So I like yarrow. It's native, and I like the way the bees like it when it flowers, and I like it as a turf grass, and I just don't know if I would rotate it through as a cover crop because I like it where it is.
How does it propagate?
I don't know.
Okay, because they planted a bunch.
I always bought it as starts. Huh. I never thought about it.
I live in the Central 9th area of Salt Lake, so right the east side of Greenery, and they planted a bunch of yarrow in a new area that they're putting in, which I love because, like we were saying, it needs very little water and next to no care. But I'm noticing now as I was walking around the neighborhood, there's yarrow taking off everywhere else. And
so it goes to flower, and then that becomes seeds.
So those seeds go airborne.
When you said propagate, I was like, how do we grow it commercially in nurseries or whatever? And I was like, I actually have no idea what the commercial process of yarrow is.
seeds are going up in the air, and so we're gonna have wild yarrow growing everywhere.
And I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah, it's an abandoned warehouse district.
Do you know how happy I would have been to find some volunteer yarrow instead of some volunteer English ivy in my yard today? Would have been a completely different TikTok video that I made.
Hopefully the TikTok started again. It was the phone telling us that our battery is getting low, so we're sorry that it paused out there.
Oh,
but it should be back.
Well, did Ryan say what he thinks about yarrow as a cover
catch up to it. While we're at it, what is comfrey? While I'm getting to
comfrey, it's an herb. It's not specifically native to everywhere. It's just it's used a lot in permaculture because you want to kind of mix as much native biodiversity supporting stuff with as much. Lee's laughing about something I haven't even heard yet. Let me answer this question about comfrey. You wonderful man. It's an herb. Is it? It's an herbaceous perennial. I mean, if I use the word herb, you might think it's edible, and I don't believe that it is. But it is a dynamic accumulator. And if you don't know what that is, I'd highly recommend you spend several hours reading about it because it's super fun. And I went down a rabbit hole many years ago learning about it. But essentially, it has a very deep taproot, and it can access nutrients in the subsoil that have leached from the topsoil and are no longer bioavailable to other plants and just suck them right back up. And then dynamic accumulators store their nutrients that they've sucked back up right in the plant itself. So then you can use the plant itself as a fertilizer.
That's awesome.
That's rad.
Nathan had commented that we got paused out intentionally because we were talking too much crap about our overlords.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've hinted at my affiliations quite a bit during this live, haven't I?
Yeah, and Gregory said that they might try to patch of yarrow. They've got a few motch passes that they like, so that's awesome.
That's rad.
And did you say it was Ryan at Salty Groves?
Yeah.
Yeah, got back that he loves yarrow for all purposes, use it as a cover crop, but also been seeding it in his yard.
That's awesome. I've never thought about rotating it through as a cover crop. I just put it in perennial beds because I think it's so fabulous and it comes back.
I'm always fascinated by how it comes back. Like our yarrow this year is coming up, and it's coming up in our clover, and it's spreading out. But last year, towards the end of the summer, what had been white was starting to come out with yellow and red and different kinds of striated flowers, and we didn't plant it that way.
It's just cross-pollination.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's so cool. And I mean, they do that on purpose when they're modifying these. Like you can buy yarrow at the nursery, and it's peach, and it's orange, and it's gold, and it's red, and it's purple. I love yarrow. My favorite is this like corally peach color that they're doing with it. I think it's just so stunning in so many different kinds of landscape designs.
And like you said, it's xeric and it's native, and we should be planting a ton of it.
When it's coming up around your clover, is it just like straight in the middle of your lawn?
Yeah, we had an area of the yard that we had bricked in, and I thought that I was adding too much thermal mass to the yard, so I took the bricks out, and I put clover in because I wanted the dogs to have a place to jump and romp, and then the white clover flowered, and I thought, this is amazing, I love it. And we had so many bees between that and all the Russian sage we planted, tons of Russian sage in the yard, so very bee friendly yard. And then the yarrow, we put one small yarrow plant in the middle, and it's just kind of growing into all of the clover, and it's just neat.
And you don't need it to be like a short lawn, right? You can let it flower.
Yeah, the clover right now is a good 6 inches high, and it's looking neat, and it's like, I could mow it and it would be tidy, but I don't want tidy anymore. I want chaotic nature in my yard. So
I love it. Yeah, that's the cool thing about your situation is it, like, let's say for some reason you needed to put your house on the market or whatever. If you have this mix of clover and yarrow, you could mow it down to a 2-inch height, and it would be this incredible, like very pristine, very bright green lawn. That is otherwise impossible in our climate without just a ludicrously irresponsible amount of water. But because you don't actually need it to be that neat, you can just allow it to reach its like full ecological potential and just like grow to its full height. But the flexibility of that really appeals to me, especially like from a design perspective. Even that bio-native grass, like this idea that, I'll let it be 12 to 15 inches high and super like wildlife supporting for most of the year. But if I need it to be short, if I'm having a picnic and I know people are going to be playing like badminton over here or something, we can make that short.
I may have also, being that no one knows who I am, I'm completely anonymous, and no one knows my name or what I do.
His name is Lee, and he works for us. We love.
I may have accidentally overseeded the clover into my neighbor's yard too.
There was just a little bit of guerrilla gardening happening.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a complete accident. I
It
didn't
was
mean to do
hypothetical, and if it even happened, it was not on purpose.
it.
You heard it here first.
Yep. All right. Mary wants to know if it would be a good idea to plant clover around their vegetable garden raised beds, like in with the vegetables or outside of that.
I do both.
Mm.
I do both. Use your judgment. I live in Utah. It's not actually that aggressive here because of how hot it is. On the East Coast, clover can be very, very aggressive. So please use your judgment. Here, nitrogen fixing ground covers like clover work in symbiosis with my vegetables very well. They pump in the nitrogen, the vegetables take up the nitrogen. It really kind of works as a living mulch for me. And I also like it as ground cover in pathways for gardens because it suppresses weeds. It pumps in nitrogen right into the soil, right under those beds. Kind of fabulous, right? Use your judgment about your area and how aggressive clover is. If you live in a place where clover is really aggressive, you could easily do an edible nitrogen fixing living mulch, like in the terms of beans, like bush beans. If you just had literally a carpet of bush beans underneath your tomatoes, it's a living mulch that's also edible, that also fixes nitrogen. So there's lots of options for you.
What can be planted on top of septic drain fields? That's something we don't have a lot of septic drains here, but
we don't, and it's basically lawn. I would do like a bio-native meadow is my favorite thing. Just let it do what it's doing, and the septic field will kind of help it. But I also, just as a designer for liability reasons, I don't like to get into like, you could do this, and you could do that.
What happens if the septic tank gets damaged or septic field?
But in general, like a native like meadow, wildflower field, like that kind of stuff, perfect. It's a perfect application.
That's awesome. Okay, Mindra wants to know if their lawn is really hard and they're wondering if they need to do any coring in order to get it ready for seed, and would they need to core before doing the cardboard compost mulch?
Oh, interesting. Like coring before sheet mulching.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends if you're overseeding or you're sheet mulching, which are different things. So if you want your new lawn or grass or ground cover to just overtake your existing lawn over time, then all you would need to do is aerate it. You definitely do want to do that because that allows the seeds to kind of get down in there. I would also, at the same time of aerating it, I'd get a hard rake, so not like one of those little leaf rakes, but like one of those hard metal rakes, and I'd give a very, very stern rake to the entire lawn so that you can kind of create those gouges and create more opportunity for seed to soil contact. And then I do a very light application of compost, like a quarter of an inch or something. Like, you still want those seeds to be able to have some access to light, but we want some nutrients in there, and we want some of that compost to kind of like get down into those aerated cores that you've done and allow the like microbial activity of the compost to start taking off and that kind of thing. So definitely aerate and overseed. If you're trying to sheet mulch, I think aerating is actually kind of a cool idea because that's just going to allow the roots of whatever you're overseeding the sheet mulch with to like just have an easier time kind of getting in there. But I almost never recommend overseeding after sheet mulching. I recommend planting perennial nursery starts into a sheet mulch yard and then just overseeding if you're just going to do like another kind of grass seed or something. So there's different applications for different methods.
Do you have any compost recommendations if they don't have any ready or available?
If you live in Utah, we've already talked about him, but Mike from Salt Lake Compost, absolute icon, just a joy of a man, joy of a human being who's just really excited about dirt and will talk your ear off about dirt as long as you want.
There's one in every town.
If you don't live in Utah, I would recommend checking with your city to see if there are free compost pickups available, and I would make sure that they are stamped and certified as like biosecure, no weed seeds, everything's safe. And I said this in the last live, but for the love of the Lord in heavens, my new favorite phrase, do not just answer some random dude's Craigslist ad for compost, because you will not get actual compost. You will get straw and horse manure, and it's bad for your garden because all of that straw just is not ready to be garden soil yet. So just please be careful. Biosecurity is important.
Okay, I think we've actually
All right.
potentially run out of questions.
Maybe we should. I mean, it's been a hot second, right?
A hot second, like just an hour and 58 minutes and change. So
Yeah,
we'll run through the business real quick.
Yeah.
So of course, all you folks watching on TikTok, we hit just close to 60 people between the two platforms. So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you are not watching on YouTube and you just caught this on TikTok and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to disappear any minute now, we actually do this as a simulcast on YouTube, which means you can catch the archive. It's on the live part of the channel. You just see where it says videos, right next to it'll say live, and that's where all of the YardFarmer live content's at. But we also do lots of tutorials and how-tos and just general rants about gardening and sustainability and permaculture.
And I'm going to strengthen that statement, Lee. If you aren't following us on YouTube, what are you even doing? What are you even doing? If you're watching this, if you're looking at my face right now, if you're looking at me in the eyes, you're not following us on YouTube, what are you even doing?
Yep, we've got some great stuff coming up too. We have a Discord channel that's going to be firing off fairly soon.
You want the Discord invite. You want it.
Definitely do. And we may or may not have a webinar. Actually, we do have a webinar coming up.
We have a webinar coming up. Info dropping soon. Yeah, we're going to be talking about understanding your yard as an actual ecosystem, both from the garden perspective as well as the landscaping perspective, and starting to understand the context of your yard as a part of nature instead of just this weird decoration thing that makes no sense and is difficult. Because we don't want that.
You're getting compliments on your sweater, and also Mindra says that we need to start a YardFarmer clothing line with some of your catchphrases. We'll actually start collecting some of those catchphrases because they are gold.
Oh, can you tell me what my catchphrase is? Oh, it's for the love of the Lord in heaven. That's all I got.
Oh, there's a few others.
With an Irish accent.
And if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Yeah, there's a few. You hit that last week. Yeah.
I did have a thought. I should probably not say this before I've trademarked it, but I did have a thought. What if I had an adorable baseball cap that said "Dirty Horticulturalist"?
It's good.
It's good.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Bye.